Hi, this is Tony Wade, the Compassionate Investor, and I'm so excited about this episode because you get to see firsthand the very first property that we had when we started our model. Now, I'm not going to call it the transitional housing model because we didn't really do a whole lot of transitional housing here, but it did set the tone for what it is that we do as a regular, which is we focus on creating transitional housing facilities, and this was where it all started. So if you're thinking about getting into this space, watch these particular segments so that you can get on track with how you might be able to replicate what I do in your community. This is part one, talking about my transitional housing journey. And guess what? It all started here. As you are looking at this space here, this is Lee Street in St. Louis, Missouri. And this is where I started my journey. I'm not going to call it transitional housing because it wasn't at the time, but I was able to see the vision of what I could do while I stood right here looking at what used to be a building here in this space. Set the tone, that is, because what we're about to do right now, I want you to understand how I even ended up on this corner, because most people say, why would you be on Lee Street? But I had gone out with my real estate agent and we had gone and looking at all these different properties because I got the vision. I wanted to buy some property like most people do. So we had gone to this one house and it was small. It was like, I want to say like 1,000 square feet. It was so small, but they were telling me that she was able to house like 6 people there. They didn't really talk about how many she housed there. They just talked about how much she was bringing in. She was bringing in like $3,000 a month in this one little house. And I was like, how is she able to do that? But when I walked through and looked at it, it was not pretty. I mean, we're talking people were on the ground, on mattresses in the basement. Like that was how she was able to maximize her rents in her property. And I wanted no parts of that. That's not how I moved. But when I saw this land, when we had a home here, it was a 4-family flat. This 4-family flat was huge. It was a humongous property. And in that property, I was able to envision 14 large rooms that individuals could be housed in. So as I looked at that, God started showing me the model. He started showing me how we could create a haven, an oasis here for individuals who needed housing. And it wasn't going to be a slum. Like we weren't going to be catering and putting people on the floor. We were going to give people, treating them with the humanity that they deserve to be treated with. And that's how the journey started. So when we got this property, and it was just amazing. I'm just going to tell you. I say amazing because I thank God every day for grace and mercy because he was with me the entire time. When I first acquired this property and, as you see what it looked like back in the day, it was beautiful. But we were also on Lee Street. So we actually used to have a fence in the front. And while we were in the front, and my very first time coming here, I actually was next to my neighbors who represented a gang that obviously I did not have a lot of experience in. And I'm going to tell you about this incident because that's how I know God was with me during the whole thing. I acquired the property. We purchased it. I was coming in to assess what I needed to do, right? But as I was coming in, the street was blocked off because there was a shooting the day before. And they had the street was outlined because of the body that was shot up in the street. And the only people who could pass were people who owned in this area. So because I owned, I came, parked my little vehicle in the front of the house. And while I was coming into the building or heading toward the front of the door, you could see the people from the gang who started to come around me. And I was praying the whole time. I was praying through it and I watched how God moved on my behalf. As I was coming in, the first thing I did was just acknowledge. I said, hey, how y'all doing? And they saw the space that I was coming from, so much so that the OG who was sitting up on the porch, he nodded like that. and everybody backed off. And from that point forward, they protected me on this corner from things that were seen and unseen, from having any issues. They moved out the way. It's like the sea parted for me to come into my property and do what I needed to do. So I say all that to say this. This is a space that you still need to move through with some knowledge, move through with some wisdom and some discernment and truly prayer, because this is a space that's definitely needed, but you want to also make sure you got those angels protecting you in this space. So this is where it all started, here on Lee Street. Now I will tell you what you're looking at right now. You see the building is gone. Well, through the journey, because this started with this one, and the knucklehead stuff I was talking about, I had to experience in dealing with people, because I didn't know how to screen people properly. All of those things I did not know, but I had to learn how to move in that space. That's why those of you who are interested in getting into this space, hit me up. I would love to mentor you or share with you some things to do right in this so that you do it well. But as I was moving in this space, I had individuals who thought I had no insurance. So, because one of the guys who actually was working with me, he was our maintenance guy. I was taking him to other properties that we were accumulating, because this property brought us in so much cash flow. I was buying more properties. So he thought he was going to hurt me. So by hurting me, they burned the building down. So he thought I had no insurance and I was kicking him out because it wasn't working. He then made arrangements and my place was burned down. But what he didn't know, I had insurance on this place. I didn't have insurance on the place that he was helping me in. So you see how God still protected me through that journey. But this is where it started. A lot of my lessons learned came from this space right here. Now, as we look at this particular segment, I want you to understand sort of how we got here. Because it has been a beautiful journey, but it has been a journey with some bumps. But I've learned so much from it. When I first started, because it wasn't transitional housing, it was truly boarding homes. We were doing a rooming boarding house model, because we didn't know anything different. But I clearly knew I didn't like that model. I didn't like the population that I served in that model, because it was not good. And I had a lot of bumps through that process. So, I've only recently, these last few years, been able to expand on transitional housing and creating a transitional housing facility model that we could actually replicate. So that's been like the last 5 to 6 years. So you can clearly see the difference between the two. I just knew definitely I did not want to have a boarding house. I wanted to truly have transitional housing. So after our first property, we start growing pretty quickly because the first property generated so much revenue that it allowed for me to be able to buy more. And so as I started looking, and I think the first one I bought after I had a house that wasn't transitional housing, but I had a house with a lady who was going through a foreclosure. That was my first property. And then I used that first property to purchase the property we got on Lee Street. So I used a HELOC, what they call a home equity line of credit. So that was the beginning of my journey. And I did not use anybody else's money but my own from that point to build what we have today. So as we started looking for properties to purchase, clearly the market at that time, anywhere outside of the hood, these properties were expensive. And I knew where the need was. A lot of the properties, in the, less appealing areas, you could purchase a little cheaper. So the one property we did get on Lee Street was a nominal amount. And that's how I was able to use the HELOC to get the first property. But then as we start replicating that, or after we start making money in that model, we were able to start setting more and more money aside to purchase more property. And that's what we did. So after our first property, we made money. We went and bought another property. So places where we looked, because the first place was the MLS, trying to find something affordable on the MLS is like slim to none unless you are in, a less appealing area. But we looked on the MLS, and that's how we got Lee Street. And then we purchased another one or two properties because it was affordable. We could literally put cash down and keep it growing from there. But the one asset that I love the most, at least back in the day, it's not as good today as it used to be, was the tax sale. We would use the tax sale to purchase other properties. Now, I'm a beast at the tax sale. Go find one of my episodes where we talked about how you do the tax sale. But it was during that time that we were able to build such a large portfolio to the point, and we paid cash for everything. So the more we kept growing, the more money we kept making, the more money we kept putting into more properties. We just kept buying properties to the point where, we have multiple properties, dozens of properties as a result of the model. So you just have to know how you are going to navigate that space to get there and what resources you're going to use to be able to get it. Another way in which we were able to obtain inexpensive properties was through wholesaling. I know you've heard me talk about wholesaling a lot, but you can purchase properties barely slim to none for people who just ready to get out of a property. They're in distress. They just want it gone. So we were able to shop around, drive for dollars, and find other properties that fit our specific niche. And by utilizing those particular strategies, we were able to build an amazing portfolio. And now, as I look at it now, it's hard to believe it's been that long that we have built this portfolio, but we're doing pretty well with not only being able to make revenue and make money and maximize rents to help sustain our lifestyle, but we're giving back to communities in a way that is providing affordable housing options for them, and not just stopping there, but providing them services on top of that housing so that they can sort of get through whatever they're going through and then go to the next level. As we talk about my journey in transitional housing, I tell you, it has been a journey. And as I think about where we are today, I can honestly say the lessons we have learned have been tremendous. I don't ever want to paint a picture that everything has been peaches and cream and we got a wonderful model that works so beautifully well, because I'd be lying. Okay. There's been a lot of lessons learned through this journey, and I would not replace any of them, even down to the house being burned down, because that was a lesson within itself. But I've used every opportunity to build on to be able to go to the next level of where I'm going. So some of the things that I've been able to do over the last few years as a result of this journey, I've got a systematized process of how these are executed. That is probably the biggest thing that I have gained from this journey, is I've been able to not only create multiple units that I'm able to create, but I'm teaching other people how to do this space too in their communities. I've got people reaching out to me across the country on, Tony, how do I do that there? Well, if I didn't have this as a part of my journey, I would have never had anything to start with. That's been the most exciting part of everything that I can say 14 years later, right? I've been able to learn how to screen people properly. And trust me, you're going to want to know how to screen people so you're not getting individuals who are not going to be a good fit for your property. I've been able to utilize systems and create systems that make it so seamless that it's almost like plug and play. I've got a lot of things that are automated, and those people who participate in my Transitional Housing Maximize course, they get the benefits of all of that. So I can say truly, my journey has created something phenomenal that's not only changing my lifestyle, the livelihood of what me and my family experience, but the people who are here in St. Louis and other people across the country, because it is something that we can replicate and build out to create more affordable housing options. Now, as I look at where I am and where I see myself going, oh my gosh, the sky is the limit. As I told you, we started with the one property in this boarding transitional housing space here at Lee Street. And then it has now expanded to the point where we had one, I think the most we had was maybe 10 properties that we replicated this model in. In addition to that, the 10 properties that we have, I've taught several investors how to replicate this model. Some have one, some have several. And hopefully through some of these episodes, you'll get a chance to meet some of them and see what they've been able to do in their successes. But the greatest thing I can say, and I don't want to, we're in this clearly to help people. And I don't want to showcase the money, but the money is there. I have been able to take literally my journey and replicate it in such a way that we are able to take other people to the next level and maximize what we have. So right now, what I built everything on these 10 properties, I was able to sell my entire portfolio for like 10 times that price. And I could do it over again if I so choose to. So those are the benefits of what I've been able to do just in being in this journey. But the greatest thing that I look forward to now is, where do we go from here? I was just talking with my husband the other day because we did sell our portfolio of properties. Hopefully you'll get a chance to meet our new investor who purchased it. You'll be able to hear why he's wanting to do it. But my husband's like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Because we have so much time on our hands. But guess what, y'all know who I am. I'm the compassionate investor. Everything I do, I'm building on top of where I am. So we are actively looking at hotels right now because we want to replicate what we're doing and building at a higher level. So we are entertaining hotels. We are entertaining apartments, but our goal is to make sure that whatever we choose to do in real estate, not only are we going to maximize what we can make, but we're going to be able to impact communities. So stay tuned for a lot of that information that'll be coming forward in the next episodes. So I'm excited about where my journey has gone, and I'm excited for where we are going to go from here. And you just got the opportunity to see my journey, part one, as it relates to transitional housing. And I've got to tell you, it has been bitter and sweet for me to talk about this experience because we were able to build such an amazing portfolio through this model, and it all started here. So as you get out there and think about what is it that you want to do in your community in this transitional housing space, then I want you to hit me up. Come find me, because I want to be able to help you get the things you need so you can successfully put in place a transitional housing facility that will not only serve you, but serve your community. You can find me on Facebook, on my Facebook group called Transitional Housing Maximize Collective. You can also find me on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube, but just do something and come find me, because this work is great. We need many people who want to get into this space to serve our communities, and I'm looking forward to you helping us in that effort. So get out here and transform lives, because transformed lives transform the world.